Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of chapter 2 of business studies chapter wise revision for class 12th. In this session, we are going to study about the FUES principle and then the natures and the importance of the principle of management. So let's start with the principle which was given by Mr. Henry Fure. Now, before we do that, let us understand the background of Mr. Fure. Now, he was a French management theorist. He did his graduation from the mining engineering and then he became the engineer of a French mining company. And later on, he became the director of that company. Now, when he became the director, the company was suffering through bankruptcy, and the contribution of Mr. Fuel it bring about a drastic change in the fortunes of the company. Now, when we talk about contribution of Mr. Henry Fuel, he found that activities of organization should be divided into six groups. So these six groups are technical, commercial, financial, security, accounting, and managerial. And he was the first person to bring a distinction between a technical job and a managerial job. So he was the first person to establish there are technical skills and managerial skills. And he was the first person to identify the functions of management. The functions of management which you study in the form of planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. These principles, these functions of management, they were first given by Mr. Henry Fuel. Now, the most important contribution of Mr. Henry Fuel, which we have to study, is the 14 principles he gave. Therefore, he is also referred to as the father of general management. So let's start with the different principles, the 14 principles which were given by Mr. Henry Ford. So first of all, we have the division of work. Now it refers to dividing the work into a compact job and then allocating these compact jobs to individuals. Now what Ford recommended in his principle that all the jobs which are there in an organization, they must be divided and allocated to the individuals. Now when you do that, you have to make sure that the worker is competent, he has the proper qualification and he has the required experience to do that job. The intent of this principle is that to produce more and for better work with the same effort. That is, the production will increase and the work will also be better with the same amount of effort if the job is divided according to the competence, qualification, and experience of a worker. And when you divide the work, it makes the task simpler and the repetitive performance also brings speed, accuracy, and most importantly, specialization in the job. Now, the managerial and technical work, which is advised by the fuel, both of them, they have, in both of these, you can apply the division of work very simply. So this principle is applicable to both. In big companies, they have separate departments and they have specialized person. It is because of division of work principle. Then you have authority and responsibility. Now, according to this principle, there has to be a proper balance between authority and responsibility. Now, what do we mean by authority? Basically, it is the right of a superior to give orders to subordinates. And responsibility is the duty which subordinate is expected to perform. Now, according to Fuel, authority is of two types. It is official authority, that is the right to command, and then it's a personal authority, that is individual's power. Now, authority must not allow superior for managerial abuse. At the same time, it required authority should be given to superiors for completion of task. So, according to this principle, authority and responsibility should go hand in hand. Now, we have to note that a manager should have the right to punish a subordinate for willfully not obeying a legitimate order. But that punishment should only come after a proper opportunity has been given to the subordinate to present their case, why they were not able to do a direct order. Then the third principle is the discipline. Now, it refers to the obedience to rules and regulation of an organization, which are required for systematic working of an organization. Now, every organization has some written down rules and regulation which have to be followed by all the members of the organization. Discipline requires good superiors at all level of management who are committed to work. And these principle of discipline should be judicially applied when you are applying penalties for non-obeying of a job. Now, discipline is must for all enterprises and for all level of management. Basically, whether the disobedience comes from management or it comes from the worker, the application of the penalty has to be same for both of them. Then you have unity of command. Now it implies that every worker must receive orders and instruction from only one superior only. If the worker will receive orders from more than one superior, then he will find it extremely difficult as to whose order he should follow first. Now, dual subordination will also create confusion, conflict, and disturbance when our activity is done. it can also lead to overlapping of an activity. So according to Fuel, if this principle is not followed by any organization, the authority of the superior is undermined, discipline of the subordinate is in jeopardy, and order is disturbed. And therefore, the stability of the organization cannot be maintained. So, therefore, when you understand the unity of command, it is very much like the obedience or the discipline you find in a military organization. Then you have unity of direction. Now, basically, the efforts of the members of the organization should be directed towards achievement of a common goal. The unity of action and coordination should be focused. This principle is developed from a very famous theory of one head, one plan. Now, more often than not, there is a question between unity of command and unity of direction in which they ask you the difference between the two. So let us cover that. So first of all, you have the meaning. In unity of command, what we study, that it implies that each subordinate must receive order and instruction from one superior only. You must have heard the idiom that too many chefs spoil the dish. So that should not happen. One worker should receive order from one superior only. But when we talk about unity of direction, it means that efforts of the all members of the organization, they should work towards a common goal. That is the organizational objectives. The aim of unity of command is to prevent dual subordination. The unity of direction aims to prevent overlapping of activities. Now, implication of unity of command are more individuals. They affect individual employees. Unity of direction, which is not followed, it affects the entire organization. So the significance of unity of command is that it improves efficiency, it brings harmony and discipline among the worker. On the other hand, unity of direction, the significance is it facilitates unity of action and coordination. Then we have subordination of individual interest to general interest. Again, a very simple principle. Interest of an organization, the enterprise goal, must be placed above the goal of an individual. Now we know our organization is made up of a lot of individuals. Every individual has his or her own interest. However, according to Fuel, organizational goal is the main priority. The individual goal are the second priority. If there is a conflict between the organization goal and the individual goal, the management should step in and they should resolve that conflict. If that reconciliation is not possible, then general interest must supersede the individual interest. We have to know that this principle basically works on the uh, idea that one individual can only be successful in an organization if the organization itself is successful. Then you have remuneration of employee. Now, basically, overall pay and compensation should be fair to both the employee and the organization. So, what do we know that? First and foremost, employees should be paid fair wages, so that if male and female are working in a same level, they are doing the same kind of job in an organization, their wages should be similar. At the same time, the wages which are being paid, they should be within the paying capacity of the organization. Fair wages to both the organization and the employee will not only ensure that the workers they have a very pleasant environment to work, but it will also ensure that management has a sufficient fund to pay those wages. Then the eighth principle is centralization and decentralization. Now, when authorities are passed as you go down the level of management, then we call that authority is decentralized. Every level of management has its own authority. But when it is retained by the top level, we call it decentralization. Now, in smaller firms where there are less number of head to control, so you can find centralization is limited to only a top level. But when you look at a large scale organization, you will find that there are a large number of managerial level. So therefore, you find decentralization is there. Now, too much decentralization lead to delay in work because the order will take a lot of time to reach to the final worker. On the other hand, if you have a complete decentralization, it will lead to loss of control by top management. So according to this principle, there has to be a proper balance between the two. Now, how much centralization or decentralization depends upon the skills, knowledge, intelligence, and experience of the manager. Then you have scalar chain. Now, scalar chain is basically represented by a line of authority. That is the order of rank from top management to the lowest level of management. Now, it serves the scalar chain, it serves as a chain of command. It also serves as a chain of communication, which is followed by the superior and the subordinate. Now, why scalar chain is crucial? Because it ensures unity of command and effective communication. But what if there is an emergency? So, Fuel also gave a provision if there is any emergency situation. So in case of urgency, Fuel suggested could be a horizontal communication between the two people who are working in the same company at the same level in different departments, which is called gangplank. Now, two managers at two different departments working in the same designation, if they want to communicate with each other in case of any emergency, in case of any urgent situation, so in that case, you can use the gangplank where they surpass the all other authorities in the chain of command and they directly communicate between each other. Why? So that they can overcome the delay in communication. But this gangplank is only limited to the most urgent cases. Then the 10th principle is order. Now, when we mean order, we do not mean a degree. Okay, by order we mean that men and material they should be at the right place at the right time. It means human and the material resource they should have a fixed place. An accountant should be doing the accounting job, so he should be in the accounts department. A person who is well versed in finance, he should be working in the finance department. If there is a fixed place for both resources, then and they are present there, it will lead to orderliness in the organization. There won't be any hindrance in the work, which will also lead to increased productivity and efficiency. Now, Fuel emphasized that there are two type of order in a organization. First of all, you have the material order. That is, there must be a certain place for everything, and everything must be at its proper place. So there should be a proper place for keeping raw material. There should be a proper place for machinery. There should be a proper place to keep the finished goods. Then you have a social order that there must be a place for every employee, and every employee must be in his or her appointed place. Now, I'm sure you go to a medical shop when you have to buy some medicine. Now, when you offer your prescription to that the individual, the person who is there in the medical shop, he immediately knows where that medicine is kept. Why? Because in a medical shop, you find that order of material. Every medicine will be kept at a fixed place, so that immediately the person will know from where the medicine will be taken out. Then we have the 11th principle, which is equity. Equity basically means there should not be any discrimination between the employees, whether on the basis of caste, creed, language, gender. It refers to just and fair behavior of management towards the worker. Now, the management must follow this approach of fairness, justice, and impartiality. No worker should be given unduly favor, or no worker should be unduly punished. Now, Fuel also advocated use of force and penalty sometimes to treat lazy personnel so that the other people will also know that okay, everyone is equal in the eye of the management. Then you have stability of personnel. That is, employees should be selected after a rigorous procedure. But once they are selected, they should be kept at a specific position for a minimum period. And they should be given reasonable time to show their worth, their caliber, and their potential. Therefore, you have what we call a probation period when you join a company. Because when you change a person's job on a very regular basis, it creates instability and insecurity in the employee, and they would tend to leave the organization. So, in short, employee turnover rate should be low so that organizational efficiency would be maintained. Now, in the interest of the organization, that it is in the interest of the organization that they trust the experience and they train the employee so that they do not leave the organization. Now, changes should only be made only when there is an unfavorable situation where you cannot help it. So, for example, you have an employee who passed away. You have an employee who has retired. You have an employee who is showing prolonged illness. So, in that case, it is fine to change him, but otherwise, the job should be relatively stable. Then you have initiative. Now, initiative basically means taking the first step with self motivation. Now, Fuel suggested that employees should be encouraged to take initiative in work-related matters. Organization should have a suggestion system, and if any suggestion given by the employee is proved to be useful, then that employee should also be rewarded. It not only boosts morale of the lower level employee, but it also shows which of your employees have an intelligent trait. Now, initiative should be encouraged, but it does not mean that the employee should be allowed to go against a established practice or a direct order just because they want to be different. And the final principle given by Fuel is esprit de corps. Now, basically, esprit de corps means the spirit, the team spirit. Now, it means the principle basically states that the management should take reasonable steps to develop a sense of belongingness and feeling of team spirit. Now, when we talk about team spirit, when we talk about teamwork, we basically mean that together everyone achieve more. And in large company, the involvement of team, the concept of a team is very much important because you have a large number of people who are working towards a common goal. So the manager should replace I with we to develop atmosphere of mutual trust. Now, after the 14th principle, we have the nature or the feature or the characteristics of principle of management. First of all, these are universally applicable. That is, no matter what kind of organization you are running, no matter the size, no matter the nature. The extent of application of principle may vary, but they are applicable in almost every organization. Then they act as a general guideline. Now, principle of management cannot be used as a tailor-made solution. They do not provide a ready-made solution because they are only a general guideline. Business situation they vary and they are complex and dynamic according to the nature of the organization. So these principles need to be applied carefully in accordance with the need of the organization. Then you have these principles are formed by practice and experimentation. Now remember, these principles are evolutionary in nature. Evolutionary means they keep on evolving. We know that organization works in a business environment. This environment keeps on changing. So these principles are developed after observation, experimentation, and research of management thinkers. Then you have flexibility. The principle of management are not as rigid as principle of science. Because of that, they could be modified by the manager as per the change in the business environment. So therefore, these principles are flexible in nature. Then they are mainly behavioral. Now, principle of management aim at influencing human behavior because all work in an organization is done by the human beings. And human behavior in itself is very complex and dynamic in nature. So the principles aim to influence such unpredictable behavior in order to achieve the organization goal. Then you have cause and effect relationship. That is the principle of management. They have a cause and effect relationship. It means that if management principle is applied on any given situation or any given problem, then it will help the manager to predict the outcome. And finally, you have contingency. Now, principle of management are completely contingent in nature. It means principle works as per the current situation and they have nothing to do in the past or they have nothing to do with the future. And the final topic is we have the significance and importance of principles. First of all, they provide manager with useful insight into reality. When you apply principle of management, when you adopt principle of management, as a manager, you improve your knowledge, your ability and understanding of the situation. It also provides timely guidance which help in understanding the problem. Then it also helps in optimal utilization of resources and effective administration. Now, principle management, they are constructed in such a way that the coordination between physical, financial, and human resource can be improved. When that coordination improves, it gives you an optimal utilization of resources. The principle also believes in better administration by discouraging personal biasness in achieving a objective. Then they help in taking a scientific decision. Now, decisions which are taken after referring management principle, they tend to be more realistic in nature. They are much better than that hit and trial approach. Then they help in meeting changing environment requirements. Now, in order to survive and grow, especially in our environment which is continuously changing, the organization also has to change. Although it is true that management principles are just guidelines, but they are very much helpful when the given situation, and you can modify these principles according to the situation. Then they also help in fulfilling social responsibility. Now, because business is a part of society and they use the resources of the society, the principle of management, they always help the organization to achieve their social responsibility. And finally, you have management training, education, and research. Now remember, these principles of management at the core are management theory. So when you will study professional topics, professional courses like MBA or BBA, you will find that principle of management are taught in those professional courses as well. So these principles they help to contribute for management training, education, and research. With this, we have completed the revision of our chapter 2. Very soon, we'll do the revision of chapter 3. Thank you so much for watching.